The ninth section of Twilight of the Idols, What the Germans Lack, is about 7 pages long, and it contains Nietzsche's critique of late 19th century German spirit, nationalism in the state, and the German education system. One of the important themes of this section is that Nietzsche's view of renewal for humanity is not primarily a political project, it's a cultural project. Nietzsche sees the political impulse and the cultural impulse pulling in opposite directions, and part of his critique of the Germans and of modernity is that we've made the choice in favor of political greatness, sacrificing our cultural and spiritual greatness. Nietzsche begins section 1 by saying that the new Germany, the Germany of Bismarck and the Kulturkampf, excels in virile and martial virtues. It is able to practice obedience without humiliation and to show mutual respect between citizens, but it has also become powerful. And one fundamental law, Nietzsche thinks, is that power makes stupid. It has elevated mediocre intellects. Deutschland, Deutschland über alles, the German anthem. I fear that was the end of German philosophy, writes Nietzsche. In sections 2 and 3, Nietzsche notes several factors that hold back the German spirit. Those two great narcotics, alcohol and Christianity, and also, he says, terrible German music. The German spirit is becoming cruder, shallower, and less passionate, and in German universities he finds both students and professors contented, lukewarm, and gradually despiritualized. He blames this on the despiritualizing influence of the science industry and pretentious jobbers and fragments of humanity who have ensconced themselves in the universities. Education has become a business and a political project instead of a task of noble education and spiritual elevation. In sections 4 and 5, Nietzsche says that in a sense there's a resource allocation problem. There's a finite quantity of self-overcoming available, and Germany is spending its allotment unwisely. Culture and the state are antagonists. They do not rise together, but the rise of one means the decline of the other. Great cultures are almost always apolitical, even anti-political. Think of the great philosophical flourishing in Athens after its defeat in the Peloponnesian War. Today, writes Nietzsche, German education is focused on training students to be of service to the Reich, to the state. He also notes that educators, professors, are lacking. Instead of superior noble spirits, we have higher wet nurses, babysitters. Higher education has become democratized and therefore common and mediocre, Nietzsche laments. In the final section, Nietzsche sets out 3 tasks for noble education. One must learn to see, learn to think, and learn to speak and write. Learning to see means learning to postpone judgment, to withhold making a decision about something, to examine every individual case from all sides. This is the mark of a noble spirit and what is called a strong will. The vulgar are unable to restrain their immediate reactions. They have an opinion about everything the moment they encounter it. Learning to think, Nietzsche says, is mostly lost in schools today. The very idea that thinking requires technique, requires a will to mastery, Nietzsche compares it to dancing, and notes that the Germans have lost their subtlety, especially after Kant. They have become clumsy and lead-footed. Noble education, Nietzsche says, means to be able to dance with one's feet, with concepts, and with words. When it comes to learning to speak and write, Nietzsche refuses to say anything. He notes that his German readers will not comprehend anything he has to say on this question because of their defects on the previous 2. This brings us to the end of this section of Twilight of the Idols. We'll look at the next section, Skirmishes of an Untimely Man, next. Goodbye.